Welcome to the VIA podcast, presented by AAA Mountain West Group. On this episode, you'll find out what made Mitty say this.
That is a fine, fine man. And you'll find out what made Michelle say this.
Are you going because the cowboy that you described as hot is going to be there?
I can't admit that on this podcast. Do you want my boyfriend to break up with me?
And you'll find out why our guest said this.
You know, I would tell my wife all the time, like, I'm done. You know, it's hot. It's dangerous. This is my last rodeo. And she was like, okay.
Oh, my gosh.
How
last rodeo.
You know, I'm like James Brown with the cape. Like, I'm done. And then I throw it off and keep going.
Let's get into it.
Okay, Michelle, this might be a first for me personally. I finally booked a guest on the VIA podcast.
Ooh, I know that you have an extensive Rolodex with all of the travel writing you do. So tell me who we're talking to today.
You know, I do, but I've never interviewed anyone like Ivan McClellan. And what I really appreciate about him is that his pictures do a lot of the talking for him. A lot of people know him in the community for his Black Rodeo. 8 Seconds Rodeo. So there's no better person to talk about rodeos in the West than Ivan.
I'm stoked to be here. I got an email asking to be on here, and I was like, yeah, I just got asked to be on the VIA AAA podcast. And my wife screamed. She screamed. She said, oh, my goodness. And I was like, what? She's like, that is huge.
Oh,
wow.
We love your wife.
That's amazing. I love your wife. Yeah, I feel like we should have like some shabuzi playing in the background, like set the stage for this like talk on rodeo. When I think about rodeo, I have to be honest, I think about Beyonce's tour right now, Cowboy Carter. Ivan, Mitty, are either of you going to see Beyonce on this tour?
Yes.
Oh, what's up?
We're going. My wife went for her birthday. My wife Heather went last week in LA.
Nice.
And, you know, sent me a video of Beyonce flying over her head in a Cadillac, which is, you know, life-changing stuff.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
We're taking the kids. We're taking our 6-year-old and our 8-year-old, Ishmael and Ruby, to the show in Washington, D.C.
Whoa.
So that'll be like their first like big concert.
Oh, that's incredible. I wish my parents would have let me go to more concerts. Mm-hmm. I think that probably would have changed the trajectory of my life, and I probably would have been a
You'd be Beyonce
music writer
right now.
Oh, yeah. No, right?
You would have been on. We would have been going to see Mitty.
Yeah, exactly. But to that point, what Beyonce has done with Black cowboy culture, she has really just piqued everyone's interest in it. And we've learned more about other country artists such as Shabuzi and Breland and Blanco Brown and Tanner Adele. I'm just curious to know, how do you feel about what feels like an increase with particularly Black cowboy culture?
I'm stoked about it. I've been, you know, grinding since 2015, seeking out these stories and finding these really fascinating people by word of mouth, one by one. And to see a lot of those folks that I was, you know, riding around in trucks with, performing on global stages, performing at NFL games. And I've hung out with Tiara in tiny, dusty bars in Nashville. And like now she's like hanging out with Beyonce on a regular basis. And it's just, I've hung out with Willie Jones at a boot store, just sitting around trying on boots and seeing a lot of these folks get the exposure and get their talent out there globally is just incredible. I mean, it's incredible to be along for the ride. And it was just like kindling, and Beyonce came and lit it on fire. And it's just such a gift for the culture, what she's doing right now.
So you live in the Pacific Northwest currently, but I believe you grew up in Kansas City. And just curious to know, is that where your interest in rodeo started, or when did you get bit by the rodeo bug?
Yeah, I mean, rodeo is just, we went to the American Royal in Kansas City every year. My choir sang the national anthem there. Our school would take field trips. I remember being like, this is a bunch of white folks here and it smells horrible because of the animals. And it was just like, it was like the rodeo happened, but the most exciting thing about it was the barbecue competition out in the parking lot in the front. Also, you know, I was a big fan of Westerns. I was a big fan of Bonanza and Gunsmoke, reruns on TV. I love the Beverly Hillbillies. I've probably seen every episode. my favorite movie growing up was Tombstone with Val Kilmer, rest in peace. And we watched that movie in the theater. As soon as it came out on VHS, I just like wore that tape out and would walk around saying, "I'm your Huckleberry" all day to everybody. Still don't quite know what that means, but it just sounds really, really killer. And have been fascinated and enamored with the West, but hadn't particularly found my place in it as a Black man until I got much older.
Can you talk to us a little bit about that moment or the event that the light bulb went off and you're like, wow, there is Black rodeo culture?
Yeah, I was at a bar. I was hanging out with this filmmaker named Charles Perry, who I just met. Black man, salt and pepper afro, probably 6'2", and we were just chatting. And I told him I was a photographer and asked him what he was working on. He said he was working on a documentary about Black cowboys. And it was just like the world kind of paused. I was like, I know cowboys and I know Black, but these two things together just don't make any sense to me. Like, I had always thought of Black cowboy as like Sheriff Bart in Blazing Saddles or Cowboy Curtis on Pee-wee's Playhouse or Sinbad in the Cherokee Kid.
Oh, I forgot about that.
Yeah, no, it was just kind of like a joke. Like, what if a Black man was a cowboy, you know? And he was documenting something that wasn't historical, something that was happening in Black culture now. And he said, come with me and take some pictures. I ran home and bought my plane ticket, and I flew to a little town in Okmulgee, Oklahoma, to this Black rodeo called the Roy LeBlanc Invitational, and saw thousands of Black cowboys doing the Cupid Shuffle in their boots. They were eating the most delicious smoked turkey leg that you've ever had in your life, drinking a strawberry pop. There were young men riding their horses in basketball shorts and Jordans. There were women riding around the barrels with acrylic nails clutching the reins and braids blowing behind them. There were old men with pinky rings and Stetsons and shirts so starched you could hear them crunch when they moved their arms. It was
oh, wow.
It was very familiar to me and very comfortable, but absolutely foreign at the exact same time. Like, this is how Black people can get down? Like, this is extraordinary to me. And I just kept going back. I didn't even know what I was going to do with the photos for years. I just wanted to be there. It was a place that really resonated in my soul. And as a photographer, it was the singular thing that I wanted to take pictures of.
So you got this experience and you felt this call. Did you kind of dive deeper into the history of Black rodeos?
You know, that first rodeo, I met a cowboy named Bailey, and we talked for a very long time. And he just was sitting there and he had on his perfect white shirt. He wasn't sweating at all. It was 105 degrees. I was
oh my gosh,
dripping sweat. And we just sat and talked, and he told me that the purpose of these Black rodeos was to allow these competitors a platform to compete, and that they couldn't always do that at white rodeos. They would either have to compete after or before the competition, but they weren't allowed to compete during the competition. And sometimes they weren't allowed to compete at all. And so they started their own events. They were small money events. They were thrown together in their hometowns, and a lot of those rodeos that were invented out of necessity still happen to this day. Some of them have been running for 70, 80, 90 years, which is incredible that those traditions stay alive. You know, I've learned that the Tombstone Wild West did not last a very long time, a few decades. These cowboys were driving steer across the West and the Midwest, and as soon as barbed wire and trains came into the picture, they were no longer necessary. And so these cowboys had these remarkable skills that they would take and perform in rodeos to show what they could do. And Black folks were in the Wild West. Black folks were on cattle drives. Nat Love is one of the ones that wrote about his experience in the Wild West and then his experience in rodeo. He changed his name to Deadwood Dick. And he was an extraordinary rodeo cowboy, at least according to him. He's the only one that could write. So like he rodeoed, Bill Pickett rodeoed. He invented the sport of steer wrestling. He would jump off his horse and bite a steer on the lip and wrestle it to the ground. And that's a sport that happens at rodeos across America. Yeah, it's
that still
ridiculous.
Happens? Is that
no? I haven't seen anyone bite a steer.
Oh my gosh,
that's not ethical. But they still do. They still do the sport. They figured other ways to get it onto the ground. But Black folks have had a legacy in rodeo and in the West for as long as it's been around, and you know, to see those stories get told and to see those folks become household names is something that I really care deeply about.
And from your first experience, you went around the country documenting these Black rodeos, turned that into an amazing book back in 2020, 8 Seconds. And the pictures, I mean, I was literally in tears when you see the images of Black families and Black fathers with their kids and passing this on, or you see like the Pan-African flag at these rodeos. You just don't see that at some of these mainstream rodeo events. But then you created your own 8 Seconds Rodeo in the Pacific Northwest. It is the only Black rodeo in the Pacific Northwest. Can you talk to us a little bit about what inspired you to do so?
Yeah, I had been traveling from rodeo to rodeo for years at this point, like 8 years, and kept threatening to quit. You know, I would tell my wife all the time, like, I'm done. You know, it's hot, it's dangerous. This is my last rodeo. And she was like, okay.
Oh my gosh.
Sure.
Last rodeo.
You know, I'm like James Brown with the cape. Like, I'm done. And then I throw it off and keep going. And doing that, I had really started to develop really strong relationships in this world. You know, I really care very much about these cowboys and really view them as friends. And this is no longer just a photo project. And I'd realized I'm in this pretty deep. You know, these cowboys have a lot of passion. They care deeply about what they do on their horses and on their bulls and in that arena. And they'll do it no matter what. But there was just a huge delta that I was seeing in white professional riders and Black riders. You know, they weren't getting the same opportunities. They didn't have the money to get down the road and compete for a rodeo season, which is incredibly expensive. It costs hundreds of thousands of dollars. I decided that I wanted to create a platform where these folks could get exposed to sponsorship, where they could show off their skills in front of thousands of people. And that was the birth of the 8 Seconds Rodeo. First thought was like, how am I going to convince my wife to do this? We had just had our third kid, Emmanuel, and I went to her one night and was like, baby, I'm gonna throw a rodeo, and it's gonna be a big money rodeo, and it's gonna be physically powerful and spiritually moving. And she just said, is it your calling? And I said, yes. And she said, all right, let's do it. Let's get to work. My first thought was Kansas City, where I'm from, just because
that would make sense.
Yeah, it makes sense, right? Yeah. The Cowboys are there. There's rodeo grounds in the middle of town. My hat and my heart were in Portland, Oregon. And the Black population there, though small, I knew would show up very powerfully for the event.
Definitely.
And I knew that the press would go crazy about a Black rodeo in seemingly the exact wrong place. And so we got to work putting it on in Portland, Oregon that first year. We brought in 40 dump trucks of dirt. We brought in all the lighting, all the sound. Like, we did it as hard as possible. Like, we climbed.
Wow.
We went into it like a salmon. We were
I like that analogy.
Oh my gosh.
And we did all of that. You know, hadn't sold any tickets up to a month to the event, and somebody shared it on the Black Portland Facebook page, and we sold 2,000 tickets overnight, sold out in about 3 days. And at that point, I was like, I don't really have the money to pay for this. I called every cowboy on the phone. They were like, a rodeo where? Portland, Oregon. and I just like convinced them that this was going to be amazing. And I got 30 Cowboys to agree to come, and the sponsorship started rolling in at the end, and we pulled it off. I remember I was in the back, and was blown back to see that room full of people. Everybody was there. They were dressed up in their best Western wear. Some people had no clue how to dress Western, but they did their best. They were taking selfies. They were having community with folks that they maybe hadn't seen in decades. The music was going, the lights were going, and I just started to weep because I was like, we actually set out to do this impossible thing, this thing that I had no business doing. Like, I had never planned a birthday party.
Yeah.
And had just pulled off this event. And when Darian Chavez came out on that Bronco and his hat fell off and his dreads were flowing behind him.
That man.
The crowd went crazy.
My boyfriend is listening, but wow. That is a fine man.
Darian Chavez is the guy. He really is.
Oh my goodness.
Can you just tell our listeners what we can expect if we attend 8 Seconds Rodeo?
Yeah, there's going to be 8,000 people there this year. People show up early for the show to line dance. We've got official 8 Seconds Clack fans this year that say yeehaw on them. So people are going to have their fans out doing different line dances, boots on the ground and the likes.
I was going to ask you.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, that's going to be a big one. We have an instructor coming in this year to teach some line dances. And then on that concourse, people are showing off their outfits. People are dancing to the music. The DJ is piping in, getting some food, getting some beverages, riding mechanical bulls. We have our Cowboys up on the concourse teaching roping lessons. They're roping little metal steer, which is always entertaining to watch and to participate in. There are tons of vendors in the concourse. You can get everything from a new pair of boots to a hat wig. We have a hat wig vendor there, which they do very well every year. And then at 7:00, everybody pours into the arena and you see some of the world's best bareback riders, bull riders, and barrel racers competing for $60,000 in prize money. And it's just a great vibe. It's a great time, even if you're not particularly interested in the Western events. We have a comedian named X Mayo that does a dad's dance competition because the event is actually on Father's Day.
Oh.
There are sing-alongs, there are giveaways, just a lot of energy and a lot of vibe in between the Western sports.
Ivan, I have been trying to learn boots on the ground, and my 60-something-year-old mother knows the line dance better than I do. I just can't get the turn. So hopefully by the time I come up there for 8 seconds, I'll have the line dance together.
Yeah, I haven't even tried it. I that's not my thing, but I'll clack a fan for you.
I have never been to a rodeo myself. So can you tell me where 8 Seconds comes from in terms of the name of your rodeo?
Yeah, 8 seconds is how long you have to ride a bull or a bronco to get a qualifying score. That time is absolute chaos. Anything can happen in that interval of time. You can get hurt, or worse, you can make a bunch of money. And that money is what you use to feed your family. And that money is what you use to get to the next rodeo. And it's a name that the Cowboys are really proud of. And we only do 3 events. We don't do steer wrestling or calf roping or any of the other rodeo sports. We do bull riding, we do bareback bronco riding, and we do barrel racing. And so all of these events are very time bound. And I think the name just really works perfectly for the event as well.
So we have the 8 Seconds Rodeo in Portland. Can you tell us about some other rodeos in the West where we can see some of these top riders compete?
Yeah, there's the Bill Pickett Invitational Rodeo, still the only touring Black rodeo in the United States.
Okay.
They go to several cities and 3 in the West. They go to Denver on MLK Day.
Mm-hmm.
That's a wonderful rodeo. Big indoor arena, lots of energy, lots of vibes. And it's like the only rodeo that's going on in the winter. So that's a great time to kind of battle the snow and go see these sports. Typically the rodeo season goes from about April, May until October.
Okay.
And this is like a rodeo in the middle of January, which is phenomenal. So if you want to go to Denver in January, go to the Bill Pickett Rodeo on MLK Day. They also do one in Oakland. That's an outdoor rodeo. And then they do a big one in Los Angeles, in City of Industry. I've been to that one. I've been to the one in Denver, and they really throw down in LA. Like, you go in, there's hundreds of food vendors, brisket with macaroni and cheese on top, which is exactly what you need when you're out there. The celebrities show up, James Pickens III, Oba Babatunde from the movie Life, which I was like, you were in Life. This is amazing. And you're wearing a cowboy hat. This is so cool. Yeah. You run it, all the stars are out. And it's outdoors, but it's a covered arena. So rain or shine, it's going to happen. And they're just like vibing. You're just as likely to see people dancing to Not Like Us, which last year was a big hit by Kendrick Lamar.
Michelle and I love Kendrick Lamar.
They dropped that song and the crowd just was going crazy and sea walking and in their cowboy boots. And it was just phenomenal. But then like right after that, they played Melodies from Heaven by Kurt Franklin. And the whole crowd is like dancing to and singing to gospel music.
The Black experience. Like, it's like we all grew up the same. And it comes together in LA. Like, it's ancestral or something.
It does. It does. They bring in the cowboys on their horses at sunset and the lights blasting through the arena. And it's just like golden. And all of these horses are kicking up dust, riding around in a circle in this arena. It's a truly beautiful, stunning rodeo. Completely different vibes from the 8 Seconds Rodeo. Like, our rodeo, I call it a showdeo because we only do the 3 events, and we've got a comedian, not a rodeo clown, and everything moves really, really fast. The Bill Pickett Rodeo in LA, you sit down in your seat and you stay there a while. It's a true rodeo. They do all of the events. They have kids events. They do a lot in the community to help people, from scholarships to programs to benefit the women in the program, women in the rodeo. I just really appreciate what they do. And the LA Bill Pickett is just something phenomenal, something special.
I like how you compare the 8 Seconds is a showdeo and the Bill Pickett Invitational is a rodeo.
I think the platform, the Bill Pickett platform and what they've created is the first place that these Black cowboys go to like cut their teeth and really learn what they're doing and refine their skills. And it just has such a wonderful and necessary place in the culture. Even cowboys that have gone on to compete in pro rodeo and do well, like Corey Solomon and John Douch, these ropers who are competing for hundreds of thousands of dollars now. They started in Bill Pickett.
Can we talk about the life of these riders?
Hold that thought. More of the Via podcast is on the way after this short message.
Hi, Maggie here, your culture-obsessed AAA travel advisor. I have to admit, this episode taught me what an important role African Americans played and continue to play in Western culture. Now, I've got to see Beyoncé's Cowboy Carter tour and attend one of these rodeos. Of course, Black history extends beyond the American West. Once I took a river cruise in France that focused on the Black experience in their country. We visited a cemetery where Senegalese troops from World War II were buried. We toured neighborhoods in Paris where African American artists, writers, and entertainers found a home. That trip offered all the pleasures of a river cruise, the food, the wine, the scenery, but it also profoundly expanded my understanding of the world. Whatever you're interested in, there's a cruise out there that's perfect for you. Learn more by visiting AAA.com/Via podcast.
Hey, thanks for sticking around. Let's get back into it on the Via podcast.
Being a rodeo rider, it just sounds pretty brutal. What do you think attracts people to this life?
Yeah, I used to ask cowboys all the time, how did you get into this, was the question that I would ask. And they would just usually stare at me blankly. And I realized that it was kind of a bad question
Okay.
It was kind of like asking, oh, somebody in America, how did you get into eating bread?
Right.
It's just like who they are. It's what they were born into.
Yeah.
They have a hoof print on their heart. There's nothing else that they could do. Right. Somebody like Courtney Solomon's been riding since she was 4 years old. And Courtney Solomon is just the definition of cool. She's 15 years old. I've known her since she was 11. I went down to take photos of her for a Wrangler campaign. And I was trying to shoot her running around the barrels, but she was going entirely too fast for my camera.
Wow.
I couldn't keep up, and I couldn't get a good shot of her to save my life. And she was like, Mr. Ivan, you need to go over there to barrel 2. Because when I come on barrel 2, I'm coming right at you. And then I go all the way around. So you got at least 3 opportunities to take a picture of me. This is an 11-year-old, and she taught me how to shoot the sport. Wow. And I do exactly that whenever I'm shooting barrel racing. And she is a 4th-generation cowboy. Her mom was a barrel racer. Her grandma was a barrel racer. She's been doing this for generations, and it's just been sat in her lap to do. And I'm like, hey, how'd you get into this? And she's like, I didn't.
It got into me, right? Yeah. Like, it got into me. I didn't get into this.
Well, you know what's interesting about especially LA? I believe Beyoncé rode out on a horse led by one of the Compton Cowboys in her NFL halftime show. So I'm just curious, do you know anything about the Compton Cowboys?
So the Compton Cowboys are a group of young men who grew up together in, a rough neighborhood and rough circumstances. They say the streets raised us, horses saved us is their tagline. And they got into this horse culture and came up grooming and taking care of stalls and riding these horses. And it just gave them a purpose and a place for their energy that saved their lives and really, really gave them something positive to do in generally a negative place. You go and meet them, they're really tight knit. They've ridden together. They've grown up together for their entire lives. And they're just phenomenal. I wear their gear as often as I wear mine because I love their logo. It's like Old English Compton Cowboys. And they have several different co-brands that they do with different fashion brands. I'm just like a huge fan, and I want to be a Compton Cowboy, but I grew up in Kansas, so it's just not going to work out for me. I talked to Randy Savvy, who is the de facto leader of the Compton Cowboys. We talk regularly. And if I get to complaining about something and I'm like, I don't want to do this is a bad deal, or blah, 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 he always just says, Ivan, do it for the culture. And I'm like, oh, okay. That's a good reset. I need to get over my ego and just like do this so that other people have a platform, other people have a voice. I remember the first time that I went to Compton to see him, I was taking photographs for an Ariat campaign, and I went to Enterprise Rental Car, and they said, all we have is this really nice new Jaguar. And I was like, oh man, you don't have anything else? And they were like, no. And I'm thinking, I'm going to Compton. I've got this Jaguar. This is going to be horrible. And I pulled up at like this really nice house, and like there's chickens and goats, and it's like farmland in the middle of Compton. It's nothing like I would have expected from what I've seen in film and TV. And I'm sure that exists, and I'm sure that that's real. But like where Randy and them get down, it's very pleasant. And there are kids running around in the back, and they're getting on horses, and it's just all positive vibes.
So Ivan, just curious, with the Compton Cowboys Ranch, can people actually visit it?
You would write Randy, send him an email. You can go to their website or message him on Instagram and see what's going on at the ranch. They always have stuff going on, whether it's a small get together or the kids coming out. They've got the Compton Junior Posse, which are the young kids that compete. I would email them before I just rolled into Compton unannounced.
Noted.
Unless they're rolling in with you, right, Ivan?
Yeah, unless they're rolling in with me, then we're good.
Do the Compton Cowboys put on shows for the general public, or do they just participate in rodeos like 8 Seconds?
That's the best place to see them is at other events. I'm good friends with them. They're all driving up to our rodeo in Portland
Awesome.
this year.
Oh, very cool.
I love the support.
Yeah.
I know. That's like a great community.
They'll come to an event like Stagecoach and they'll come deep, and that's a great way to interact with them. I would follow them on Instagram just to keep track of them and to figure out exactly when will be a good time to interface with that group.
I want to ask about the Arizona Black Rodeo. I live in Arizona. This is something I've seen on my social media feeds the last couple of years. How does it differ from the Bill Pickett Invitational Rodeo and the 8 Seconds Rodeo?
You know, the Arizona Black Rodeo is the second rodeo that I ever went to. Like, I had gone to Okmulgee. I had really laid down roots there. And then I went to the Arizona Black Rodeo. Oddly enough, I was invited by the same filmmaker, and I went there expecting to kind of see the same thing and was horribly mistaken. The Arizona Black Rodeo was a very lighthearted and fun, and people were wearing pink and turquoise, and a whole motorcycle gang showed up called the Buffalo Soldiers, and they were presiding over the event, and it just was like dusty and just an entirely different vibe than the one in Oklahoma. That was the first rodeo that I'd seen Spanky the Clown.
Okay. Tell us about Spanky.
Avery Spanky Ford is the Black Rodeo clown. You'll see him at all the events.
Okay.
He's performing on the dirt, and then he also is selling jerky. It's his,
his side hustle.
Yeah, he's got a side hustle outside of his rodeo. But, you know, when I saw him in Arizona, he came out into the arena with these big beach balls and a deck chair, and the announcer was like, "What are you doing, Avery?" And he's like, "I just bought beachfront property." And they're like, "You're in Arizona." And it's just the goofiest stuff that he does. And like the crowd just like is in love with him. It's a great time. All of these rodeos have a different complexion, a different vibe. And Arizona is just a different energy than anywhere else that you'll go in the country.
You know what I love about the way you describe that when you literally said it has its own complexion, it has its own vibe. I mean, it's like Black culture is not monolith, right?
Yeah.
So similar to our culture, you can go to different rodeos and experience something totally different. But outside of rodeos, is there a way to experience Black cowboy culture?
Yeah, absolutely. There are numerous trail rides in California.
Okay.
The difficult part is really nailing down when they're going to happen.
Okay.
And nailing down exactly where they are. You have to do some research.
Okay.
You can go there and you can experience that tailgate pre-show vibe. If you don't want to ride a horse per se, you can just hang out and really eat and dance and experience culture in that way. Or if you want to bring a horse and you want to go trail riding, like, go for it. Some of the trails can be a little tricky and difficult. You can ride as long as you want and then turn around and go back, or hop on the back of somebody's ATV and ride that way, which is the way that I go when I'm shooting these things, is I'm on the back of an ATV.
I would do that.
You're not shooting on the back of a horse or a bull, Ivan?
Well, no, that's not my thing. The camera generally requires two hands, and it's just not going to work out for me. I've shot on the back of a horse one time, and that was in Wickenburg, Arizona, which is the team roping capital of America.
Oh, I didn't know that.
And I learned very quickly that shooting on a horse is not really the best idea.
No. Before we let you go, I have two questions. One, you have kids. Are they interested in this at all? Have they done any? I know some rodeos have kids events. Is that something you could experience at these? Are Ruby and Ishmael, are either of them interested in following in your footsteps?
I don't know if they're interested in following in my footsteps. Ishmael said when he gets old, he's going to start the 9 Seconds Rodeo. That's what he said he was going to do.
Oh, that is so cute.
Yeah. But they compete. Both of them have competed in mutton busting, which is you take a perfectly happy kid, you put him on a sheep, The sheep runs off. The kid tries to hang on. They fall off and cry.
Oh,
and
no.
That's just sort of the sport. That's the way that it goes.
It builds character.
It does. My daughter did it the first year of the rodeo in 2023, and she won. People have accused us of rigging it, but that's not true.
No, it's just in you. Noted.
Yeah.
Oh, Ivan, what's something you wish more people understood about Black rodeo culture?
When I made the book, I wanted people to experience a day at the rodeo. I wanted them to go to the rodeo grounds in the morning and see bull riders putting their stirrups on their boots and the turkey leg man roasting his turkeys on a special machine that he invented that spins multiple legs around in a smoker. And I wanted them to see the energy of the rodeo as the sun goes down and people really get ready to compete. And I wanted them to see the explosion of energy in the arena as the rodeo started and the reaction from fans. And what I wanted them through my lens to feel is the big old smile that I had on my face while I was shooting it. I wanted them to feel a moment of absolute joy in a field somewhere watching a rodeo. It's my most happy place. And I really hope that people understand that, yes, there are challenges. Yes, this is difficult for these riders. But at the end of the day, everybody's having a wonderful time and doing what their heart wants to do.
Yeah. Let me just say, Beyoncé gave us Cowboy Carter. You gave us 8 Seconds and an incredible lens to Black cowboy culture. And I'm so thankful today for your time.
Thank you so much. This is wonderful. I appreciate the conversation and appreciate the time to be here and talk about my experience.
I'm actually going to 8 Seconds Rodeo.
Stop.
Yeah, I'm not kidding.
Minnie, that's so exciting.
I am excited. I just can't find anything to wear. There's just so much out there, and you want something that fits your personality.
Are you going because the cowboy that you described as hot is going to be there?
I can't admit that on this podcast. Do you want my boyfriend to break up with me? No, I'm just going for a good time and good vibes, and maybe I'll see something I like occasionally, but just looking.
If you want to hang out with the Cowboys, our VIA contributors have a couple of really good ideas. Dina Mishev, a VIA magazine contributor based in Jackson, Wyoming, recommends checking out the Friday Night Rodeo in DuBois, Wyoming. Dina says, while there's bareback riding, bull riding, and roping, the most popular event might be the kids' sheep riding event. Any kid can try it as long as they weigh less than 50 pounds, wear a helmet, and their parents sign a release form. All sheep riders are awarded a crisp dollar bill for their bravery.
Michelle, would you let your boys do that?
None of my boys are less than 50 pounds, Mitty, so I am off the hook for this one.
Saving grace for you.
But when they were smaller, I would sign the release form because a helmet's required, and I'm like the safety mom, so.
And they get $1.
Yeah, and you get a crisp dollar bill. Nothing's better than a crisp dollar bill.
And Laura Reed, a fellow VIA magazine contributor who lives in North Lake Tahoe, California, suggests making the trek to Elko, Nevada, get this, Michelle, for the National Cowboy Poetry Gathering in January.
What?
She says thousands of people come every year to watch more than 50 poets, musicians, and storytellers perform in venues around town. The globally minded festival has welcomed a variety of herdsmen over the decades, from Louisiana Creole cowboys to Mexican vaqueros. At this year's festival, Dom Flemons, a Black music historian and founding member of the old-timey string band, the Carolina Chocolate Drops, taught attendees how to play the bones. She says, while you're in town, be sure to stop in the Pioneer Saloon, where ranch hands still wet their whistles, and you can learn the rodeo cha-cha.
Is that like the cha-cha slide, but the rodeo edition?
Yeah, maybe the rodeo style with cowboy boots.
I do love the cha-cha slide, so count me in. I did, for the record, for my birthday, we're going to do family horseback riding.
You should.
Going camping in a couple of weeks.
VIA is giving you some much-needed confidence.
For more inspiration on all things cowboy culture, visit VIA Magazine online. You can do that at AAA.com/VIA. The VIA podcast is hosted by Michelle Donati and Mitty Hicks. Executive producers Whitney Phaneuf, April Kilcrease, and Dan Miller. Produced by Jason Jackson and Dave Beasing of Sound That Brands.
Discover more places to travel in the West at AAA.com/VIA. VIA Magazine is published by AAA Mountain West Group.
The views and opinions expressed by podcast speakers and guests are solely their own and do not reflect the opinions of AAA Mountain West Group or its personnel.